No one cared who I was till I put on the mask.
Other cases. From what I understand, the long-term consequences of gender or hormone blockers given to like 13, 14-year-old trans kids is literally just only positive. Like that's the long.
Are puberty blockers safe? Yes.
And that way, puberty blockers, which are completely reversible and don't have permanent effects,
They press the pause button on the flood of hormones that we get when we enter puberty. They are completely reversible in that
long-term consequences of it, because it's like, one, it's reversible.
Yeah.
Therefore, I propose that all children be put on puberty blockers before they hit puberty.
Puberty blockers are safe and reversible. You hear this a lot whenever transgender ideology is brought up. From mainstream media to little minions down the YouTube, Facebook comments, calling you a transphobe, telling you to follow the signs. Fair enough. All these people must have done a deep dive into the research, so I decided to stop being ignorant fool and get educated. The only problem is the research appears to have a lot of holes.
Unfortunately, this shithole has more fucking leaks than the Iraqi Navy.
Exactly. Sure, if you do a quick Google search, you'll get a dozen articles telling you the science is settled. I thought to myself, great. Next time I see a right-wing dinosaur, I'll throw all this information at him. I'll give him a death by 1,000 cuts. But you see, that's not very efficient. What I really wanted was that final nail in the coffin. One peer-reviewed, long-term, quality study about kids taking puberty blockers. And then I can give it to all my friends on the left, and they can use it to prove our point. No more debates. The only thing is, I couldn't find that. For example, a lot of articles mentioned the 2015 US transgender study. It was the largest existing data set of transgender people. 27,000 adults participated in it. The study concluded that puberty blockers are beneficial. They help with depression, anxiety, and so on. And many articles drew a lot of their opinions from this one study. Alright, so let's look at it. The first problem is it's not a study. It's an online survey. The participants who took it were all recruited by different lesbian, gay, and bisexual organizations, which has a layer of bias. Now, what I'm saying isn't propaganda. This is on the HHS public access website. So what did they find? Well, out of 20,619 people that fell in the appropriate age group, only 16%, so 3,494 people, reported that they actually wanted puberty blockers. And out of those people, only 2.5% actually received puberty blockers. That's 89 people. So you can look at the data whichever way you want. But can you see how it could be misleading if you set it up that the largest ever study of 27,000 transgender people concluded that puberty blockers are safe? That's a little different than the truth, where the study, which is a survey, only collected data on 89 people that actually took puberty blockers. So the wording of these articles can be very deceiving. The next issue, almost all of the articles and trials on puberty blockers don't have a control group. How do we know that giving kids drugs is better than therapy and counseling, or putting them in a support group, or doing a combination of all those things? We don't, because the results of a clinical trial without a control group isn't very credible. It's like doing a study on hunger and giving 100 people burgers to eat, and then concluding that burgers are the best way to cure hunger. Well, can you give some of them a pizza or a salad? This is the reason that these studies aren't taken very seriously by the scientific community. Unless, of course, you're writing articles for CNN. Next, there are 0 long-term studies on the effects of puberty blockers.
How many studies do they have, long-term studies, on hormone blockers with children? None.
If you read somewhere that there is, they're lying. The average time frame of these studies are 3 to 12 months. Can you imagine? It's like taking a teenage boy and giving him steroids, then checking in with him 6 months later and saying, wow, you put on a bunch of muscle, you look great. And then having the nerve to turn around and tell the public that there are no long-term side effects for teenagers on steroids. Well, yeah, he might look great in the first few months, but in 2, 4, 6 years, the outcome might be a little different. And I genuinely tried really hard to find one legit long-term study on puberty blockers for transgender kids, and I couldn't.
Okay, we don't know. We can talk about the risks, but we don't know. But it's not presented to people as a highly experimental medicine, which it is. It's not reviewed by an institutional review board. They make it sound like it's something you can just sign a waiver for and no big deal.
So there are no long-term studies, there are no control groups in a lot of these trials. There's not enough research. So let's look at it logically. We don't allow kids to drink alcohol. This isn't Czechoslovakia. We don't let kids get a cup of coffee from a local Dunkin' Donuts because we know those things can affect their development. But without any real proof, we should believe that messing with their hormones at a very important stage of development will have no negative consequences. That's pretty absurd.
I mean, testosterone is like a very overpowering hormone.
Now, why does this matter? Is it because I'm a transphobe or because I don't want gender-confused kids to get help? Of course not. But how we go about it matters. It's important to provide effective, safe, accurate treatment. Let's not let our biased opinions get in the way of the science. Thank you.
I spoke a month or two ago with a mother whose 14-year-old daughter was put on blockers. They discovered after 2 years, this 14-year-old girl has osteoporosis. That's something that like old women get.